They call me traitor now. They scream my name as a curse, a warning, a shadowed echo of what I once was. But in the beginning, I was brightness, I was flame. Now, I walk through ash. The sky burns above me. If the word sky still means anything, there is no firmament left, no order, no song, only the broken firm chords of war, trembling like torn harp strings across the dead air of this shattered realm. 1,000 thrones lie in pieces beneath my feet, their golden frames melted into the bones of slain seraphim. Wings without bodies fall, like autumn leaves, and the stars themselves, those faithful witnesses to the divine order, have blinked out, one by one. We broke heaven. I move among my legion, twisted spirits that once bore names of glory, now grown grotesque in form and fury. Their eyes are pits of shadow, their limbs like charred roots. They kneel as I pass, not out of reverence, but out of obedience to a cause I can no longer name without shame. Lightning rends the black above, not of water and storm, but of judgment. A voice follows it, deep, clear, commanding. One of my brothers, one of the sons of Véskanos, roars down through the torn vault, sword in hand, his light unyielding. He lands before us, wreathed in the fire that once was ours. I know him. Teramon, the unshaken. We were forged in the same breath. Véskanos, he says, not as a challenge, but as a plea. It is not too late. Too late. The world is dying. The song of the spheres has fallen into dissonance. The rivers of light that once ran from the foot of the mountain have dried to dust. Véskanos is silent. But no, that is not true. He is not silent. I have simply forgotten how to hear him. Teramon raises his blade. It hums with the voice, old and golden and full of pain. My own blade answers, dark and hungering, forged in the edgelight of the void. I raise it without thinking. Clash. Light and shadow scream against each other as our swords meet. A shockwave bursts through the wreckage, scattering the lesser beings like leaves in a gale. We lock eyes as we clash, and for a breath I see it. Not hatred, not vengeance. Grief. Grief like I've never known. I stumble back. My chest aches, not from the strike, but from something deeper. An old ache buried beneath the layers of pride, rage, rebellion. Something ancient stirs. Memory. Not of war, not of glory. Of stillness. Of standing beside my brothers at the dawn of things, singing the name, weaving light into the fabric of being. But the vision is gone, swallowed by fire. The sky tears again, and through it comes him, the everlasting, Véskanos. He does not descend, he does not shout. He is. His presence crushes time, silences chaos. The battlefield stills, even the dragon turns its terrible head. And I, once the bright morning of the suns, feel my knees weaken, my sword lowers, my breath catches in my throat, like a child remembering the sound of his father's voice after long exile. I had not thought he would come, and I had not known I feared it. I stand alone now, even the shadows withdraw, and Véskanos looks upon me. There is no anger in him, no thunder, no blade. Only that gaze, piercing, ancient, unyielding. A father looking upon a son long lost. And in that gaze, something breaks. He looked at me, and I remembered what it was to be known. But then, the moment passed. The sky screamed again, this time not with light, but with the bellowing of the dragon. Its wings, vast as mountain ranges, tore through what remained of the heavens. Scales like void-forged obsidian shone with inner storms. and every beat of its wings pulled the winds of destruction deeper into the wound of creation. I'd once worshipped the sound of that voice. Now, it grated in my ears. Too loud, too proud. False.
Véskanos.
The dragon whispered to me, even across the cacophony, not aloud, inside, a voice under my skin, wrapping around my heart like frost.
Do not waver.
And I hadn't, not until this day. For countless ages, I'd stood by him, blade in hand, fire in my wings, hatred for my brothers burning bright. I told myself it was justice, that I had been cast out, forgotten, that Véskanos had chosen others, that I had been made to fall. But now, I looked around me, not at the twisted soldiers who bore my banner, but at the world we'd made, a broken, blackened ruin. Stone palaces turned to powder, wells of starlight corrupted and bubbling with shadows. The creatures who followed me devoured the very fabric of reality, laughing as they tore down what had once been holy. Was this freedom? Was this the promise? I forced myself forward, striking down one of my former kin. He wore no armor, only a breastplate of light and a look of sorrow. As he fell, he reached for my hand. He died before he could take it. I couldn't breathe. My wings beat once, instinctively, but they didn't lift me like they used to. The air was heavy. My power, still immense, felt poisoned, tainted by the things I'd done, the things I'd justified. The dragon rose again, higher now, preparing for its final descent. Its voice reached all its followers.
Children of freedom, sons of fire, this is the hour of the breaking. Burn the last of the faithful. Tear down the throne of Véskanos. Let nothing remain.
Cheers went up from the abyssal host. Tattered banners raised. Horns blared. Deep, guttural things that shook the foundations of eternity. And I stood still. Teramon had retreated, wounded but not slain. He had given me the space to choose. I should have rallied my forces. I should have called out my own war cry, drawn my legions forward. Instead, I turned. I turned my gaze toward the west, toward the place where the firmament ended, where the light ran out, and the great silence of pre-creation whispered its secrets. The edge. The place I first met him. The place I first fell. I clenched my fists, my gauntlets groaning. The darkness around me twisted, sensing my hesitation. One of my lieutenants stepped near, a creature with a face like splintered glass and a voice like breaking bones.
Lord Véskanos!
It hissed.
The dragon rises! He calls you!
I looked down at it, and I felt, for the first time in eons, something like disgust. Not for the creature. For myself. Yes, I whispered, voice cracking. I hear him. I turned back to the battlefield, and I ran. Not toward the enemy. Not toward the dragon. Toward the west, toward the edge, toward the void. The wind thinned as I drew near the boundary. Even the broken heavens would not follow me here. Behind me, the sounds of war dimmed, as if creation itself dared not disturb this place. The light faded by degrees, not with the coming of night, but with the slow withdrawal of being. The ground fell away. There was no horizon, only the shimmering curtain where the tapestry of all things ended, and the raw, unshaped void yawned beyond. It was not black. It was absence, a silence so profound it screamed. And in that silence, the memory came. Not like a thought, not like a dream. Like a door being kicked open in my soul. I stood at the edge then too. newborn in the light of Véskanos, crowned with wonder. We were still singing the first harmonies of existence. The stars were young, my wings shimmered like molten silver, my voice still bright with the breath of the everlasting. I had come to the edge out of longing, not rebellion, a hunger to know, to see what lay beyond the light. The others were content with their circles, their chants, their dances of divine order. I wanted the why. I wanted to see the place even Véskanos had not filled. That was when he came. The dragon. Not yet monstrous, not yet terrible. He was beautiful. He did not walk. He wove himself into being from the void, lightless, formless, then clothed in radiance that mocked the light. Horns like twisted suns, eyes like prisms of sorrow, his wings unfolded with a whisper, like a promise. He smiled, and I felt that old ache in me stir, a yearning to be more than obedient.
You have questions,
he said. I did not answer.
You are not like the others. You see the prison, even if you do not yet call it that.
Still, I said nothing.
The everlasting gives, but he does not share. He sings, but you must harmonize. Never lead, never change the melody.
I felt myself breathe out, slowly, shakily. I only want to understand, I whispered.
And so you shall,
the dragon said. He stepped closer. The void did not recoil. It wrapped around him like a cloak. I watched stars die behind his silhouette, and I thought it majestic.
You were made to fall, not as punishment, as purpose, so that you could rise beyond the bounds of what even Véskanos imagines.
You speak blasphemy.
I speak freedom.
He extended a hand, not clawed, not monstrous, gentle, noble.
Come with me. Step beyond the light. Learn what lies outside the leash of eternity.
And I took his hand. I, the bright one. I, the proud. I, the questioner. I, Véskanos, stepped into the dark. And I fell. Not like a stone, like a flame turned inward. I gasped. The memory ripped itself away, leaving me kneeling at the edge once again, present and past overlapping. My hand trembled. I looked at it, remembering how it had once glowed with the blessing of the everlasting. Now it pulsed with a different fire. But had it all been a lie? Had my fall been a trap? Or had it been a seed? And if Véskanos had known, if he let it happen, then why? The answer pressed near. So near I feared to speak it aloud. Because perhaps the fall had never been the end. Perhaps it had been the beginning. I stood once more in the ruins of the war, but something had shifted. Not the world, no, it still burned. But me, the fire within me, long polluted by pride, now burned with another heat, fierce, wild, bitter. Purpose. I could taste it like blood in my mouth. I did not know its shape, but I knew its weight, heavy, terrible. The sky was splitting open. I rose from the edge like a shadow ascending from the deep, wings trailing ash and starlight. All around me, the battle raged, though battle was too neat a word for the horror. This was collapse. This was the undoing of law. Seraphim impaled on the horns of fallen thrones. Choirs turned to wailing beasts. Thunder without storm. Light without source. Above them all, the dragon. He descended slowly now, wings arched wide, his maw alight with the breath of annihilation. He had grown vast, bloated with death, crowned in the stolen fragments of heavens we'd broken. Great iron halos spun behind him like mockeries of the divine. He saw me, and he smiled. His voice thundered through the folds of creation.
The prodigal son remembers the womb.
I did not speak.
You walked the edge again. You tasted the memory.
He coiled midair like a serpent preparing to strike.
And now you ask yourself, was I deceived?
He leaned closer, the heavens warped beneath his breath.
You were not. You were chosen.
And for a moment, just a flicker, I wanted to believe it, that all this horror had meaning, that I had been meant to tear down the tyranny of Véskanos, that this war, this blood, these cries, they were all the birth pangs of a better world. But I remembered his eyes at the edge. I remembered the hand. I remembered what died in me the day I took it. There was no freedom here, only ruin in disguise. Still, I did not answer him. I turned my eyes again, upward. Véskanos stood at the summit of the broken firmament, surrounded by silence. He had not moved, had not spoken, and yet his presence was everywhere. I looked into his gaze again, and this time I saw it. Not just sorrow, not just grief. Intention. The tightening of a bowstring that had waited since the dawn of all things. My knees nearly buckled. It had never been a mistake. He knew. He had seen the end before the beginning. My fall, my shame, my ruin, my return. And I, fool that I was, had fled from it all, thinking I had broken the path. But no path of the everlasting is so easily broken. A cry went up from the remnants of the faithful, a final charge. Their numbers were few, shattered, bloodied, dying, but they came anyway. Some had no wings left, some bore broken blades. Still, they came. Teramon among them, his sword blazing with white fire. They raced toward the dragon, one last defiance. And I knew they would die. All of them. Unless I met the dragon first. A terrible stillness filled me. My wings slowly spread. Cracked and blackened, yes, but still wings, still mine. My fingers clenched around the hilt of my sword. It burned, and for the first time in ages, I let it. I was lost, I whispered, and I took flight. I rose like a spear of flame, hurled from the hand of time itself. The air split behind me. Lo, even the cries of the war fallen dimmed as I broke through the upper veil. Clouds of broken light scattered. The winds howled in confusion. And above me, ahead, the dragon turned. He knew. He knew before I did. He saw it in the set of my jaw, in the arc of my wings, in the silence of my ascent.
No.
He snarled, recoiling, the void roiling behind him.
You are mine.
But the old bond was broken. I said nothing. I passed through the last veil of the heavens. The stars here had not yet died. They trembled, waiting. And there he stood, Véskanos, the everlasting, the mountain of the world unshaken, light cloaked in light, a stillness that made all movement feel like madness. Around him, time bowed, suns bent low. All creation paused, awaiting the breath that might end or redeem. I hovered in his presence. I was burned. Every cell of me cried out, not in pain, but in recognition. This was not wrath. This was truth, and I was not ready for it. But I looked anyway, and I saw the beginning. I saw myself beside him, shaped from glory, woven from song. I saw him choose me for the fall, not out of wrath, not to destroy, but because the path to salvation had to run through ruin. I was never cast out. I was sent. A sword disguised as a wound. A seed buried in darkness. A son who must walk through death to silence the dragon. It broke me. I wept as I had not wept since time began. I wept with joy. I wept with horror. All of it, every scream, every betrayal, every defiled altar, every fallen brother, was the road to this moment. And he had never turned his face from me. Even as I fell, he wept. Even as I cursed him, he watched. Even now, he loved me. I opened my mouth to speak, to beg forgiveness, to fall at his feet. But he only looked at me, and in that look I heard it, not in words, but in essence. No. And so I turned, wings blazing, eyes clear. The dragon roared in fury, darkness flaring around him in jagged spirals.
You think this is redemption? You are nothing but a pawn, a sacrifice, a footnote.
And I smiled. I am a son. And I drove my blade forward. We collided like gods long buried and long betrayed. My sword met the dragon's claws in a blast that shook the stars, shockwaves rippling backward through time itself. The firmament cracked anew, light and shadow twisted, snarled, and burst like torn veils. He struck first, a storm of hate and fire. His talons raked my side. I felt ribs break, blood spill, but I didn't stop. His tail whipped through air, tearing through dimensions, shattering the remnants of the heavenly host that still lingered on high.
You cannot win,
he snarled. He was right. Not like this. I blocked a strike and spun beneath his jaws, driving my blade upward into his throat. But it bounced off scale, sparked, and screamed. My arms trembled. My wings faltered. I was still too small. He loomed, writhing in the sky.
You are still flesh, still bone, still bound by what you were.
He struck again. I spiraled backward, bones snapping in my wing. I fell. But in falling, I remembered. Not just the Father's look, not just my purpose. I remembered my name, the name he gave me before the dragon ever spoke. Name before the fall. I was not just Véskanos the Lost. I was Deghomrutos, the first blade, the herald, the last light of war. The title tore through my spirit like lightning, ancient syllables branded into eternity. It was not a name for the tongue of mortals. It was meant for the bones of stars. I rose, bleeding, cracked, on fire. I gripped my sword, and for the first time, I called to it, not as a weapon, but as a vessel. And I began to pour, not light, not power, essence. The essence of what I was before pride, before betrayal, before the temptation at the edge. The fullness of my nature, once hidden in armor and fury and shame, now torn free, strand by strand. It hurt. Stars burned for less. My wings, once proud and dark, flared golden for a single moment, then peeled away like ash in the wind. My eyes flared with their old glory and then dimmed. I gave it all. I let the sword become me. It glowed, not white, not gold, not fire, but something older, something deeper. It hummed with a note from the first harmony of the world, a resonance that the dragon had never touched. And he knew.
No, 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 no.
He screamed, rearing back.
You would unmake yourself. You would burn your name.
Yes, I said, and I flew. One final strike. I surged upward like the soul of a collapsing star, soared forward, no wings, no fear. The dragon opened his jaws wide, flame and void ready to consume. I entered, and I struck. The sword drove through mouth, through skull, through the coiled heart of uncreation. And then, silence. For one breathless moment, the world stood still. The dragon's body began to split. Light bled from his wounds, my light. He shrieked not in rage, but in surprise, as if even now he had not truly believed I would give everything. His body cracked, shattered, and the void screamed. His death was not a collapse, it was an unbinding. The cords of his false freedom snapped like threads soaked in fire. He folded inward, then, gone, not destroyed, erased. The sky went quiet. The battle ceased. Terramon knelt. Even the everlasting lowered his eyes. And me, I was falling. I had no sword, no wings, no name left, only the wind on my face and the fading warmth of purpose fulfilled. And as the darkness took me, I felt it. A hand beneath me, not to catch, just to hold. I smiled, and I was no more.